Welcome to the pocket. My name is Scooter, and here for you guys today. I got my week 14 reaction to the Giants' loss at home, 14-11 to the New Orleans Saints. We still haven't won a game at home this year. Very disappointing, but at the same time, some of you draft enthusiasts may be very happy about the outcome. Now, before we get into it, please don't forget to leave a like on the video to support the channel. Leave your thoughts in the comments and tell me what you think. What do you think about this week's game and everything we're about to talk about? And please subscribe if you aren't already so you don't miss a video. I post Giants content every week and NFL content. I'll get you guys power rankings and Moneyline picks every week. Guarantee it. Now, let's get into this week's game. Before the game started, there was a plane spotted flying over MetLife Stadium, circling it for just a couple minutes. On that plane, there was a banner that was being towed. And what did it say on that banner? It said, "Mr. Mara, enough. Please fix this dumpster fire." The state of this franchise is the most defeated it has ever been. I don't know if there's another franchise out there that's had I'm assuming it's a fan, fly a plane over the stadium with a message for the owner. That's one way to get their attention. And to be honest, I would say this is how most Giants fans feel right now is just please, we know it's not going to be this year, but please just fix this absolute mess of an organization. There is so much that we are not doing right. There's so much that needs to change. And in the end of the day, it is going to come down to John Mara to make the decisions. Is he going to keep Joe Shane and Dable? Is he going to keep one of them? Is he going to keep both of them? And it just starts there, right? Because they make all the decisions about the roster and the draft picks and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of work that we got to do. But the Giants currently hold the number 2 overall pick. The Raiders are ahead of us. They have the same record, but with an easier strength of schedule. They get the nod for that first overall pick. They are going to play the Jaguars. I believe it's in week 17. And I personally hope they win, right? Because then the Jaguars and Raiders would both have 3 wins. And that would put the Giants in place for the number 1 overall pick. So as I stated earlier, this was a pretty low-scoring game, 14-11. It was almost a tie game at the end of regulation, though. The Saints scored first with a Kendre Miller 8-yard rushing touchdown, and the Giants responded with a Graham Gano 43-yard field goal. And then way later in the game, Juwan Johnson caught an 11-yard touchdown, and he was wide open. I mean, he ran sort of like a seam, a spot route, just found the open spot in the zone. Looked like the safety, the high safety was supposed to drop down and cover him, and he didn't. Don't know what happened there. But then the Giants, they start roaring back, right? They had only scored 3 points by this point in the game, and Tyrone Tracy gets a 1-yard rushing touchdown. And we get the 2-point conversion as well to make it a 3-point game as Drew Lock throws a pass to Malik Nabers. So the Giants get the ball back, and they have a chance to drive down the field and either win the game or tie it to send it to overtime. Well, Drew Lock did do that. He got the team down the field. He got him into scoring position. Couldn't score a touchdown, so we line up for the field goal. And we knew by this point in the game that the Jaguars had already won. They had beaten the Titans, right? So they were ahead of us in draft position. We were thinking, oh no, is this going to cancel out? I mean, weren't we thinking, oh yes, we were about to win a football game? Some of you may be on one side or the other of that, but either way, we were all heavily anticipating the outcome of this field goal. And I had this little feeling deep down inside. I said, there's no way, right? Because if we go into overtime, we'll have a chance to win this game. And that can't happen, right? We blocked a field goal earlier this year. Wouldn't it be hilarious if they blocked our field goal right here? I kid you not. I was thinking, I didn't tell anyone. I don't have a witness, but I promise you, I was thinking deep down inside my head, what if they block this? I'm like, it's not really a far field goal. That's the only way we're not going to make this. Graham Gano's not that bad. Well, ball gets snapped. Hold is good. Graham Gano makes the kick, and it is blocked. And that was the end of the game. Giants lose 14-11. Oh, well, right? So let's get into a little bit of the offense and defensive breakdown, a little bit of the pros and cons of each, and the special teams as well. Obviously, we're going to be coming back to some of this. Malik Nabers had his usual 0 targets and catches in the first half. It's unbelievable. It's so frustrating, not only as a Giants fan, but in things like fantasy football. I know a ton of you guys got him out there, and I know you're just sweating every single halftime where he's got 0 points. And you're just wondering, oh my God, is this the week where he's finally going to have a dud week? The playoffs are soon. Well, he did end up finishing the game with 16 fantasy points, and that was due to 7 catches, was it? 7 no, 5 receptions, but for 80 yards. So he ended up having a pretty decent game. But we got to get him the ball more consistently throughout the game. I don't know what it is. Are they doubling him in the first half every single week? Is that what's happening? I don't know. We did only allow 2 sacks, which was pretty good, especially despite the offensive line injuries. But I would say that was mostly due to Drew Lock's scrambling ability. I mean, and to go along with the next stat, Locke had some boneheaded plays for sure. He started off 0-9 or something like that. So even though he was able to extend the play, he wasn't able to get any completions for like it was like the first like 25 minutes of the game. It felt like he didn't have a completion. It was probably less than that, but you understand what I'm saying. So a little bit of what happened last year when our offensive line was banged up and when we put in Tyrod, who I would argue still is probably not quite as good as Daniel Jones, but because of his skill set was a better fit for our situation. Drew Lock might be in a similar case where he's a bit of a better scrambler, so sort of helps us out a little bit, but obviously not enough. We did heat up in the fourth quarter on offense to bring us back in a position to tie. Who would have thought throwing the ball to Malik Nabers can get you into scoring position and help your offense move the ball down the field? Who would have thought, right? But other than that, the offense really didn't have many bright spots. I mean, it was a mess. Moving on to the defense, Kayvon and Burns each got a sack. So there you go, our edge rush duo stepping up with Dexter Lawrence out. Man, oh, I guess you love to see that, right? Kayvon and Burns getting the sack, two of our most invested players on that defense. They're still producing, I guess, even when it doesn't matter. I'm still going to appreciate it. Trey Hawkins, man, I love this guy last year. He ends our 12-week streak without an interception. So finally, we got that monkey off our back. We don't got to worry about having one interception on the season and having like the NFL record for most weeks without an interception is absolutely crazy. So good for him, stepping up in a situation where Phillips and Deontay Banks were both injured, making the most of it. Trey Hawkins, he's a really tradesy defensive back. He's played safety and corner. So the depth on the defense actually looked pretty good in this game. I was anticipating a bit more of a shootout because of all the injuries, but it actually ended up sort of going in the opposite way. The run defense, I thought without Dexter Lawrence was going to be terrible, but we held them to 2.8 yards per carry as their whole team. That was pretty impressive, right? This Saints run game, even with the injuries they've suffered throughout the year, has been effective, consistent, and reliable. And it was good to see the Giants actually shut that down. Of course, we allowed more in the passing game. Overall, I would say our defense did their job, and I was encouraged once again by the youth. I would say there's a lot of talk about the late round, the drafts of Joe Shane, not just this year, but years past as well, and him not really hitting on that many draft picks. But what I will say is he did come from the Bills, right? And if there's one thing I remember about the Bills in that time, it seemed like they were always very deep. They would always have a lot of injuries, but they would survive, especially on the defense. And I think we're seeing a similar thing where like our depth really isn't too bad. Now I understand this was the New Orleans Saints, right? And Derek Carr did get injured in this game, by the way. He broke his hand diving for a first down and he like landed face first. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? I guess it's late in the year, but of course he got injured, so that stinks for him. But yeah, I would say that the depth on at least the defensive side of the ball, Joe Shane's done a pretty solid job of drafting on that side. And I guess Shane Bowen is also doing a good job coaching the defense. At least in this week's game, the run defense was better. Now, for the special teams, the Giants had a 48-yard field goal removed by Jake Kuba's unnecessary roughness. So that was unfortunate. And then on top of that, Ihmir Smith-Marsette, he got a 56-yard punt return touchdown. But where was that in the box score? You didn't say anything about that, Scooter. Well, it got called back by Greg Stroman. Hold, man, he was stepping up. Greg Stroman, unfortunate to see him make a mistake like that on special teams, especially one that's really going to stick out like that. That's really too bad for him and Smith-Marsette. And then, of course, the game-winning field goal or game-time field goal got blocked at the end of the game. It seems almost on purpose, doesn't it? Right? Like that, like we really are trying to tank. But yeah, the special teams has been an issue all year. It continues in this game. You need special teams to have the icing on the cake to finish games, right? That's how you win. Is if you're the Chiefs and you have Harrison Butker. If you're the Ravens and you have Justin Tucker, although not this year, he's been holding them back. But you understand what I'm saying. Winning games, you don't got to win by a whole touchdown. All you got to win is by 1 point. And if you're down 2, all you need is a field goal. You all already knew that, but you understand what my point is. So I guess I'll talk a little bit more about Brian Dable and Joe Shane. As I said, I think Joe Shane's done like a decent job drafting. I mean, we don't have that many superstars, but this year's class is pretty good. The depth that's stepped up and this week's game doesn't look too bad. Last year the depth didn't look too bad, right? We had a couple, we had 3 wins with Tommy DeVito, and that was a lot of depth pieces. So I guess there is some pros. I mean, this was definitely I'd say the best week out of the past 3, right? Since we moved on from Daniel Jones, but it's really not saying much. So let's look at the rest of the Giants schedule. And actually, I'm going to look at the Raiders schedule too, because the reason we're doing this is, one, to see if we have a chance to win any game for the rest of the year, but also to see if the Raiders have a chance, right? Because the Raiders, they have a chance to hold that number 1 overall pick from us if they lose out. So when I pull up the Raiders schedule, you can see that they will be playing the Falcons next week, the Jaguars, which will be that very important game, right? To decide, that's going to decide draft position for both teams, right? They might both be trying to lose that game. And then after that, they're going to take on the Saints, right? So another team that we just played and is beatable. This Raiders team, they do have potential to hang in games, I think much more than the Giants do. Aiden O'Connell did get injured, though. So it's going to have to, I don't know if they're going to have to put Brock Powers at Wildcat or what they're going to do, but they're going to have a plan of attack, and they're going to try to, I know Antonio Pierce is going to at least try to win one of these games, right? I really hope to God that he is, but I would say in comparison, the Giants are playing the Ravens, the Falcons, so that cancels out, right? When you consider, the reason I'm looking at this is for strength of schedule. Will the Raiders and Giants strength of schedule flip? Right now, the Raiders is easier. But when I look at this schedule, I see the Ravens, like I said, the Falcons cancel out. The Colts, who are sort of on the come up right now, and they might hit 500. And then the Eagles, who are going to be contending for that first seed in the NFC. So, like I said, the Falcons cancel out, and then you've got Raiders, Saints, Chargers compared to Ravens, Eagles, and Colts. So I would anticipate that the strength of schedule will adjust, and perhaps the Giants, even if they have a tied record with the Raiders, could get that first overall pick as long as they just keep losing. Now, do I think we have a chance to win any of these games? I'm going to just say the Colts and the Falcons. I mean, even then, like the Falcons, they have their bad moments, but they're a competent football team. And then the Colts, it's just like, yeah, if you can stop Anthony Richardson, you have a decent shot, but you still got to stop him. And then you got to score too, right? You got to score on offense in order to win. So, or you could score on defense, but you understand what I'm saying. I just I don't really see it. I mean, if the Eagles lay down because, they can't get the 1 seed and they're locked in at 2, maybe. The Ravens, I don't know what the spread's going to be on that game, but I'd be shocked if the Giants kept it within 13.5. I really would. So, yeah, it just doesn't look like good for the rest of the Giants season. But I guess maybe on the bright side, does this mean our suffering is almost over? I mean, we can really start looking ahead to the future. I mean, I hate when this is what you're doing at this point in the season, when it's not even like, oh, you just got mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. Like, no, you've been mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, and you've just been deciding whether you care about winning or losing anymore. I mean, the state of this organization is just the worst it's ever been. It's the 100-year anniversary, and it's going to be the worst season ever. How ironic is that? A once great franchise, the New York Football Giants, taking down Tom Brady twice, home to the best defensive player in NFL history, and now we're the worst team in football. And not only that, we got fans flying airplanes over our stadium telling our owner to fix the dumpster fire that is our franchise. It's just ridiculous, right? I mean, you guys are probably wondering, how do I still come on here and talk about this team? Well, I said it a couple years ago. I'm never giving up on this team. I don't care. We still got draft season, baby, and we love draft season, especially when you're a Giants fan. And that's all you've had to look forward to for the last 6 or 7 years. But you know what? We're starting a new era. So there really is sort of a chance for change this offseason. But, if we keep Shane and Dable, then, if they're the problem, then it might just end up lingering for another generation. So lots of interesting choices coming up for our owner, Mr. John Mara. And I guess that's gonna cut it for this video. I try to come up with decent content for these games. I mean, there's really not that much to say. I understand it's really not that interesting, but it's really just tankathon, right? I mean, if you're really watching this video to say, are the Giants going to get the number 1 overall pick? I honestly think so, right? I think the Raiders are going to either be the Jaguars or the Saints. They're going to win one of those games, right? And they could even upset the Falcons, right? If their quarterback ends up being not too bad, but I don't see the Giants winning any of those games. So I do think the Giants will get the number 1 overall pick. So take who you will at that spot. Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, trade down, who knows? But we're going to have all of our options available to us if we have that number 1 overall pick. Thank you all so much for watching. Like I said in the beginning, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. If you want to see more videos, I got Moneyline picks coming out on usually Friday or Saturday. And I got power rankings coming out optimistically on Tuesdays, right? It might be like Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. But I work really hard on those two videos, and then I get my preview and reaction to every Giants game. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.